This is the video that I want to update on the Elude 29 speculation I was talking about in the previous video. And I actually have written an ebook where I have planned to upload that on my site, so I won't gonna explain everything at once in the video, but what I really want to get out of in this video is that just wanted to point out the main stuff that I really wanted to get into. So, because the new moon, as I explained before about the new moon and just kind of waiting for that new moon to come, and so it's like a first new moon delay with Elude 29 and T31. So there's a reason behind it, and I just, even though I had a specific date speculated previously, but then I also talked about a new moon that that should be a high watching date around the date, but so the next one I'm actually seeing that with the God's clock map. I have explained previously that the face of the earth is the it's actually the face of God's clock, and basing on Israel, which is the center of the clock. And so the world map is actually being superimposed in the God's clock at the same time. And so the what I wanted to explain today is about the greatest earthquake in history, and I think this is the most important, one of the most important things to consider is the greatest earthquake in history that occurred on the 22nd of May of 1960s in Chile. And I remember that I did research in the past, and I have been seeing how the clock is actually being superimposed in the world map behind it. So there must be a reason with the specific direction of pointing to a certain geographic location. And so I do notice that in late October, the sign, the place that was hit on the spot was actually pointing around 25th October, and if you just put a line straight through, it would point to a really specific degree, because the clock itself goes by 360 degrees round the clock, and pointing to a specific degree. Whereas there are 12 sections in the clock, a section contains 30 degrees, and the 30 degrees in the clock reflects the 30 days of the month. And so that's why when pointing to this location towards the spot that was hit, this was well, kind of like a spot here where it was pointing to the 25th of October, say around that time. And this kind of like a marker. I'm not saying like a speculation for the transformation, but I have explained about the sixth seal, and we're waiting for the sixth seal before the seventh seal to come, because there must be something that happened before the seventh seal, and we're still waiting for the sixth seal. And so, according to Exodus chapter 24, there was the 6 days and 7 day rule, and the Revelation 6, it talked about the 3 days of darkness. And so there's like it's gonna be 3 days, like 3 days of warning, according to Matthew 16. If you read it, it's gonna be like a cosmic event. It's a 3 days of warning before the 3 days to darkness. So I've read in the book about the like a lot in details about with the like a lot of details that I couldn't explain it in here in the video, but I would highly recommend you to also read it, because it's just so important that I actually could not choose not to write it. And so, but I just want to try to explain everything that I can. But the speculation that I'm doing right now is the 22nd to the 23rd of October, cause the sixth seal it's according to Matthew 27, it's where the earth did quake, and the earth, like it's gonna be a worldwide quake at the time of the sixth seal. There's gonna be a worldwide judgment. Instead of the flood, as in the days of Noah, which was a worldwide judgment, but for now it comes in the form of an earthquake, and which is gonna be in a worldwide scale. And during that time, I do believe that that kind of earthquake is gonna be so unprecedented that it's gonna mimic the pattern that went on the 22nd of May 1960, because through that time, that too was an unprecedented earthquake in history, the greatest earthquake in history. So I do believe that the worldwide quake's gonna be unprecedented. So I think, so that's why it kind of mirrors together. And so counting 3 days backward, because according to Exodus chapter 24, I think was verse 16, it was about the 6 days of being in a cloud and the 7th day out of the cloud, and that was about the darkness, the 3 days of darkness and the 3 days of warning. And so being on the first day out of that 6 to 7 days, and that first day would lead into the 22nd to the 23rd of October in 2017. So if that's what it is, then the 25th to the 26th of October would possibly, not like this will be it, but it's just a speculation that might be the commence in the 3 days of darkness, and 28 to 29 the end of that, and start the 40 days harvest. That just according to the scriptural pattern, the scriptural, like what happened in the past will happen again. So that was like a 3 days rule and a 4 days rule, just as Jesus had his 3 days of burial, 3 days of 3 hours of eclipse before the 3 days of burial, represent the 3 days of warning, and then the 3 days of burial represent the 3 days of darkness, and the 40 days rule, 40 days of ministry on the earth represent the 40 days of harvest. But then we wouldn't know the exact hour, the date of the hour of the rapture, because all the 40 days actually represent the 40 weeks of a mother's pregnancy. And so with the 40 pattern, well, the mother would know that it's gonna be the season of giving birth, after the 40 days, but she will not be sure when exactly, but she knows that it's close and could be at any time. So that will land on to December Rapture. That's gonna be in late October. So once again, before the 7th seal, the 6th seal has to come first. So the rapture boundary might be from the 8th to the 20th, because later I'm gonna explain about why choose found and month which is found is very important. So right now, just wanna talk about why Elu 29 is very important. And actually, there's a first moment delay according to Exodus chapter 34, verse 22. And, well, and ironically, it's gonna be on the 4th Sunday, on the 22nd of October, and it's gonna be on the 4th Monday, on the 23rd as well. And so that's a sabbatical code, but I just have say I wanted to actually come and explain on my book, because I do believe it's very important to explain about it, about the working of God's clock. So this is the so I have a lot of important information. Well, this is the layout of the God's clock, and it runs by the golden rule of 3. God's timing is different than man's timing. and the usage of the God's clock is to mirror date markers from the past and the future to the present time, which it expands the meaning behind a single present date. The significant world events and the festivals of God, they do not just come and go without a purpose, but they are references to be used. So I've explained in the past about different relationships that are done between the markers, so you can see the lines that are connected between the dates and the markers, and see the relationships when they're connected with the lines. So speculation of the first color transformation and the rapture boundary are then made based on the core basis of the transformation code 67. So this transformation code is very important because with the God's clock without the basis of 67, because 67 is the transformation code, that should be the key. And I'm gonna explain that later on, but the calendars are too used by party as well, and there are 3 calendars to be used simultaneously, which is the Jewish calendar, the Enoch's calendar, and the Elijah's calendar to be used all together at once. Just as the God's clock run by the golden rule of 3, with the mirroring bases, the calendars are to be used as like three of them. Well, the Jewish calendar, that's of course because Israel is our gauge. Enoch was the father of time, and so his calendar should be used. Elijah's calendar too. Enoch and Elijah were both taken to heaven, and so that kind of represented transformation, since linked with transformation of the bride. And with the quadrant mirroring, just wanna, I've explained about the God's Club before, but just wanna explain it clear right now, because previously I might have missed out something that I could be to explain it right now, and the present time can be equalized to another day, month, or a year by this quadrant method. The clockwork goes backward and forward by the golden rule of 3. So you see the clock here, there is the golden rule of 3, which is quadrant by quadrant, and it's based on the original line calendars between the Jewish calendar and the Gregorian calendar, and to obtain the same month of both calendars, they're in a quadrant 3 months apart. And so that's how it came to be, with the method. It came by having 3 months apart between the Gregorian and the Jewish calendar, and that's how that was based for the working of the God's clock. There are 3 groups which we can call group 1, group 2, group 3, or group X, Y, and Z, creating 3 crosses, and by this quadrant method, going backward by 3 years will be equal to the present year. And so is going forward by 3 years will be equal to the present here, because we're just going by 3 to 3, and so going backward and backward, or forward and forward, it's also the same thing, as long as it's going by 3 each time that we do, whether it's by years or whether it's by months. And so the current date could also be converted to another date to be equalized in a relationship, and when between calendar to calendar both dates are of the same month and date within the quadrant basis. And this is one way to mirror, and there are like 3 groups in the God's clock, and so it came out 3 families. It would be the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, and the 10th month, and we can call that group 1. So this is group 1, which is all in the quadrant to quadrant basis, and group 2 would be month 2, the 5th month, the 8th month, and the 11th month. See, that's group 2, and group 3 that's the 3rd month, the 6th month, the 9th, and the 12th month. So they're in group 3. So you do realize that there are just 3. It's everything comes in 3, and I was also inspired by Genesis 9:23 about the backward and the forward thing. So it says how, and Shem and Jason took a garment and laid it upon both the shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of the father, and the faces were backward, and they saw not the father's nakedness. So it talks about the backward and the forward thing again, and so I was pretty inspired by this, and also the construction of God's clock. Well, Israel is always the gauge, and so the 12 hours in God's clock are primarily based on the 12 months of the Jewish calendars. Then the secondary layer will be the 12 months of the Gregorian calendars based on the primary Jewish layout. Say 1 o'clock to 12 o'clock. 1 o'clock, that will be the first month of the Jewish calendar, than the first month of the Gregorian calendar. So that's not January, but actually basing primarily on the Jewish calendar, which is the first month of Nisan. So 1 o'clock with Nisan, which is April, and goes forward that way. And so that means that you land on 12 o'clock, then that will be Adar, the 12-month Jewish calendar, but then the Gregorian calendar, that would be March. Without misalignment with the original aligned calendar. And there are 2 Jewish New Year as well. One is the sun, the other is Tishrei at the beginning of months. This is then folded into half for each 30 degrees section of the clock. It is divided into 12 sections of the clock's 360 degrees circumference. Dividing the 30 degrees into 6 subsections, it will be 5 degrees per month. So each section out of the 12 would then be the year. And I've highlighted the in black, that's actually the sixth section in the clock, but I actually included 12 months altogether. But when it's folded, because there are 12 on the 2 joules, yeah. So we fold Nissan and T3 together, so they run simultaneously. Would be 6 months altogether to fit into the 30 degrees of each section on the clock. So which means that the first and the 7th month would be the first 5 degrees. So 5 to the 10 degrees, that will be the 2nd and the 8th month, and so forth. And there are when they're folded, it means that T3 is equal to Nissan and equal to January as well, because T3 is also beginning a month, it's the first month as well. And say there are, well, for directions of the clock that's pointing to also when the scriptures say points east, for instance. So there must be reason why. And there is the north gate, the east gate, the south gate, and the west gate. And the north one, that's 12 o'clock. The east one is the 3 o'clock, the south one is the 6 o'clock direction, and the west will be 9 o'clock. And so hidden at midnight will be the north direction. So it's also like pointing to different years, to the minutes direction and to the months as well, not only the hour. So the clock is, well, with the hours, the minutes, and each hourly direction is with the year, month, minute, and hour. And so remember in 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8, it says, "But, beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." So when God says that his clock has only a second left until his return, for instance, it is not the way of how man sees a second the same as how God sees a second, but differently. So based on the clock, we can convert between heavenly timing and the earthly timing, which could help us to understand the scripture better also. So it seems like confusing, but it's actually how God's clock works. It doesn't mean to be confusing, but it could be confusing in the eyes of man. But the fact is that, again, that God's timing is not the same as man's timing. So there are examples that I can give. For example, 1 hour is actually 1 year in God's clock. And that's the most obvious one that we can see. And there also there's like 1 second over here, which is actually 5 days in God's clock, and so forth. So I've written some examples in the book where you can have a look and see again, it's supposed to be like that, even though it seems like it's confusing, but it's actually the way as it is, because we shouldn't expect the man's timing is the same as God's timing is different, because the way that's different, for instance, because God's clock, God sees, like, for instance, 2017 right now, but it's actually right now is also 2014, right now is also 2020. So we're not only in 2017, but God, like, sees through the clock as other years at the same time, because of the mirroring method that was done. So then just linking to the current group of 2017. Right now we are in the current group of 2017. So whenever that we walk in 2017, it just always stuck with this position, and so applicable to every month because we're still in 2017. And so I mean, the properties of this group. And so right now October is very important. October is equal to 2019, 2016, 2013, and so forth. According to the golden rule of three, this goes back and forth by three by three each time, and so that's a different group than the group right now. So that's why sometimes it can be used with two different groups. If we're out in the current year group in which I'm showing the cross right now over here. And so the reason that October it's equal to 2016 is actually because it's pointing right here, it's 19 o'clock, and it's actually a different it's a different group, but then it's how we can all say, like, even though right now it's not 2016, but we can obtain 2016 back through being in the same family, being in the same group. So October is part of in what I call group 2. Group 2 that belongs to 2016. And I'll explain why it's very important this month October to obtain 2016. And the what may be superimposed in the clock itself. The examples that I could give about Egypt and Israel. Israel is caught between 6 to 7 o'clock in God's clock. And that is actually the pointer of the clock. This is the pointer so the highlighted pointer is just very important. The land of Israel is the pointer of the clock, and that's the first pointer. We just caught between the 6 to the 7 o'clock, and the Passover Red Sea. That's the second pointer of the clock. So there are 2 pointers, just as a clock has pointers. So there are pointers here as well. But using geographic location, being as the pointers of the clock. So well, so you can see that the land of Egypt over here, well, I don't believe things are by coincidence or definitely, and that's caught between 6 to 9 o'clock in the full quadrant. So the land of Israel being caught between 6 and 7 o'clock. And there's a reason. So what I wanna like, I can explain everything, but cause there's so much, but the transformation code 67 is the key to unlock the mystery behind the timing and transformation via the God's clock. And so the number 6 is representing the fallen state of man, and the number 7 representing the incorruptible perfected state. So it's like a transformation number. It's a sabbatical number as well, because the 4th commandment, it says to set apart one day after the 6 days of labor, and the 7 days a day of rest. And the suburb is closely linked to transformation, is a day that is blessed, a day of rest, a day of completion, and a day of sanctification, according to Genesis 2. So Elu 29, which is a sabbatical code, well, of course, a lot of people have known this date as something huge, and that's without a doubt. But actually, it's also based on this. The core basis of code 67, and the reason why, because on the Elu 29 itself, it's the transition of the 67 month, because the Jewish, it goes sunset to sunset onto the day before, so T31 goes sunset to the day before, being on Elu 29, which the 6 and the 7 month are combined on this date of Elu 29. So that is why Elu 29 with the 67 month transition is very important. So important that it is like the main gauge. I believe that should be used, because this date is a sabbatical date, being the 67 month transition in the single date. Like, of course, Elu 29, it was shown in the past of how significant it was, because it was a date where, in the great market crash, the code, for instance, on 17th of September 2001 and September 29 of 2008. And there's a reason why there is a 13-month delay. And one of the reasons is pushing 6 to 7 o'clock, just as the land of Israel is between the 67, like 67 So that's another core basis of the code 67 to be used. And so right now we're in October, which is walking in sync of September, because Elu 29 was in September, but then October is also has the Newman delay. So there's a reason why they're walking in sync together at the same time, having 6 equal to 7, in which I will explain later on as to why it's important to go that way. But here again we see 67 o'clock with the first Newman delay, and we're just actually like pushing from September, which is in the 6 o'clock direction, to the 7 o'clock direction. So rather having Elu 29 in September, but then having it in October instead. And so that's a push from 67 o'clock, and that's very important, because again we have to go through 67. This is the key, as always, to in regard to the transformation, and also the 67-day suburb. It's Fridays are Friday to Saturday, right? Even though the 22nd to the 23rd, it's gonna be on a Monday. We're gonna be on a Sunday this Monday, but remember that it walks in sync with September, because both months consisted of the same month, and there's a reason behind it. And back in the 22nd and 23rd September, that was on a Friday to Saturday. That was on the suburb. That was a suburb as well. And so that's again from the 67-day. Well, the suburb, because it runs on the sunset from Friday to Saturday, which is the 67-day in Israel. And again, the transformation of Rapture itself, that's actually surround the 67 seal. So again, the number 67. And again, with the 67-day rule, according to Exodus 24, verse 16. The 67-day rule, so that's the 3 days of warning, 3 days of darkness, whereas the 6 seal being in the midst of that. So again we see this code again, but what's more important, there are 3 sets in the sabbatical code. Well, this chart is a little bit outdated, but it's clear to show about the three thing, the 3 sabbatical code being linked with Elu 29. The first one I want to say is the 2008. 2008 is equal to 2017. Because, as explained before, we're running by the golden rule of 3. It just goes backward and backward and just go 3 by 3. And it's the same year. as with 2017 back in the time. On 29th of September 2008, that was Ilu 29, which was the code that occurred with 77776 to 7776 to 7777. So that was the code created by adding up the Jewish year 5768 plus 2008 and 5769 plus 2008. So that's the code. That's the sabbatical code with the 6 and 7 at the end, and also with the great market crash that also dropped down to minus, well, rounded up is actually 777.6 to 777.7. So it's also 67 again. Okay, well, that occurred twice. The second one, Ilu 29, it was on the 2nd October. That was that was prophesied in Genesis 7 verse 2 to 4 verse 10. You can have a look at a book in which I'm gonna upload. It's actually very, very significant. It's also the same thing in the end with the 6 and the 7, with the Jewish year of 5776 to 5777 actually. And so again, that's the sabbatical code in the 67 at the end, and so that was on Ilu 29 as well. And that's why it's very important to also target Ilu 29 in 2017, because as I said before, how October is equal to 2016, and so right now it's 2017. So combining them together is another sabbatical code between 2016 and 2017. So again, there's the 6 and a 7 at the end. So that's a transformation code that must does measure. It goes by this rule basically, because this is a transformation code, and the Pentecost with in Savant 67. It's very important with Savant 67 because with Savant 67, that's again the number 67, and it's just really important to go back to this as well. And again, the use of the God's clock is to link like the markers together, and so the current date can be linked to Pentecost at the time of Pentecost, and in a lot of ways, in a lot of different ways. And so I've actually got like some charts in the past on my site where it demonstrated of the connection of Pentecost and other markers at the same time, and how they're connected together to the present date. Well, I'm just not gonna go through every one of them, but I wanna explain about 1828, the number 911. The reason as to why 6 equal to 7, because 3 and 4 o'clock is decoded as 9. 3 o'clock's decoded 9. 4 o'clock's decoded as 11. But then when they combine together, it's 9/11. It just goes by 3, which is 6 September. 4, which is 7. 4, which is 7, which is the July, which is also Tisri. Tisri is 7 o'clock, and so you can see like this is actually this one, and this is actually that one. So I've color coded them, and you can see them like in the same family, and so I want to say so that's why the first term in the lay of having both months equal together, there's a reason. Just as the land of Israel is caught between 6 and 7, it's not like only on the 6th or on the 7, but it's between that, so there must be a reason. So 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock is 6 to 7 o'clock, because 3 to 4 o'clock was June and July, 6 to 7 o'clock eluded 2 series. The 6 to 7 month is the Jewish calendar. And so 9 and 11, 9 is to 3 o'clock, 11 is to 4 o'clock. Combining together is 9/11. 3 o'clock is also 18. 4 o'clock is also 28 decoded, which 18 with that. If 18 and 28 are separated, it wouldn't be a number together is 1828. But they're combined together right now, so that's 1828. And this is if you this number has a lot to do with transformation as well. There are a lot of different reasons why 1828 is very important, but one of the reasons is if you refer to Psalm 1828, that's a transformation verse as well. 1828 with also it's also decoded as 6 and 7 behind us, so it's a transformation code. So that's actually kind of like confirming as to why both of them need to be together. So 18 would be with 28 when 3 o'clock is matched with 4 o'clock at the same time, so which is actually 6 and 7 forward a quadrant, which right now we're backward in time, and well, there's a lot more, but I'm just you can have a look at the book on the website, but so I'm gonna stop here right now. Thank you.